Today, we arrived at another scenic location to talk about why you should not use temporary custodian name when processing. We're going to talk about today applies to relativity as well as law, and it will apply to other processing systems to some extent. But of course, there's no way for me to know what every processing system does, so it'll be up to you to decide whether it is a problem in your system or not. What often happens is client sends you a piece of data and says, hey, we need this processed. And one of the questions you ask is, okay, who's the custodian for this data? And sometimes they may not know, and they say, oh yeah, we're not sure. Can you call it a blue thumb drive? And then next time they send you more data, and again, same problem, like, oh yeah, we found this data on a desktop of some shared computer. We don't know whose data that is. Just process it, assign whatever name, and we'll figure that out later. So today we're talking about why that is a bad practice and what are the difficulties in dealing with such situation. Now, one of the first problems you're going to have is all custodians field. Whenever you process data, there is a custodian field that stores custodian name, but then there's also a field that stores who else had this data. And that field is usually called all custodians, which keeps track of duplicate documents and updates that field as needed. And depending on the system you use, all custodians field may or may not be a problem. Sometimes all custodians field is multiple object field like it is in relativity, so that shouldn't be a problem to update. However, in law, it's a long text field, so you have to go in and search and replace. Now, when you do fix all custodians field, the next field can give you trouble is all paths. That's the field that stores other path information where data resides. And sometimes the custodian name is located inside that field as well. So you would have to search and replace there as well. And if you have a search and replace long text in a large database, you know it can take a huge performance hit on the system. And when search and replacing all paths field, the temporary custodian name could appear somewhere inside the path. So by running search and replace, you could damage a bunch of stuff. So yeah, search and replacing long text fields, not always a good idea. So now that we've fixed our long text fields, we also need to update our custodian names, which of course you go into a custodian object, rename, but after you do that, you have to go to the actual documents and reassign documents to be assigned to the correct custodian name. So what you'll do is you go to documents with the incorrect custodian name, go to edit and remove the old custodian, assign the new custodian, and do all that process until all custodian names have been fixed and documents have been reassigned to the right custodian object. All right, now you got your documents reassigned. Now you have to fix your saved searches, because now all the saved searches people have been creating, they've been pointing to the old version of custodian, have to be reassigned to the new version of custodian, right? So let's say if you had two objects named John and John Old, let's say if someone creates saved search for John Old, well, you have to edit that saved search and make sure it points to John. And this way, when users click on the saved search, they get right documents. There's one more problem that exists in relativity, and I'm still working with tech support trying to understand it better. But what seems to be happening is if you change custodian name and publish more data for that custodian with a different name, well, all custodians field or all paths will get re-updated back to the original custodian name. So let's say if you got data where custodian name was misspelled due to not your fault, but maybe client gave you your own spelling of a name or it was handwritten, well, if you try to change it, republishing more documents for that custodian will overwrite your all custodians and all paths field to back to the original custodian's field name. So that is something I'm still looking into. I'm not entirely sure if that's a problem, if there's a workaround for it, but that's just something I became aware of recently. Okay, so now let's talk about solutions, to which I don't have a whole lot of. First thing, obviously, try to ask client for a real custodian name, see if you can get it out of them, maybe even if you delay project by just a little bit and get the right custodian name, it'll save you more time in fixing it afterwards. The second thing I would suggest is if you don't know custodian name, create a custodian name unknown and assign everything to the unknown custodian. It is easier to fix going from unknown to a real custodian than try to do a mishmash of custodian names, which is like a blue thumb drive, desktop data, something else, to reassign that to the real custodian names. That's probably going to be easier. And yeah, unfortunately, this issue cannot be completely avoided because, well, there's still legitimate situations when you don't know who the custodian is and you have to process data. But at least you have a little bit more information as to what are some of the problems that happen when you do use temporary custodian name and where do you go to fix it afterwards. Right? Hopefully it was helpful. Talk to you guys later. Now another... Right in the middle of my video, what's going on?